Hello everyone, my name is Nick Filonchik and today I'm going to show you a small presentation about Agile in GameDev. It would be a very quick overview and yeah, let's probably start. So this is me, this is also me, Nick Filonchik, Nikolai Filonchik by passport, my game experience, GameDev corporations I worked, certificates, I'm not so young but not so old, my LinkedIn, and yeah, welcome to this non-GDC talk. So what are we going to talk, what I'm going to talk today about? I'll start from the basic Agile fundamentals, then I'll go to the games like hyper casual and asset swap games, then I'll talk a little bit about the hackathons and games that are published using the publishers, then I'll talk about the Greenlight approach and Gates approach, and at the end I'll talk briefly about the AAA and game as a services. So basically the way how the presentation is structured, I try to group the similar approaches from Agile together with the types of game delivery, game development that are more or less similar. It doesn't mean that all the hyper-casual games are the asset swapping game. It doesn't mean that all the games that are using publishers are made on hackathons and etc. It's just the way how it was easier for me to group, so we can have not the very big presentation. So basic Agile fundamentals, thing that I believe all the software development needs to know, and basically think that as in game dev we have a lot of software development, it's really very important for people to understand how it works. So main principles, individuals and interactions are over the processes and tools. Working software or game is more important than the comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration is more than the contract negotiation. Responding to change is more important than following a plan. So it depends on what exactly you are doing, how exactly you are doing it. But Agile Manifesto says that these are the core principles that you need to value. And there is a separate video, separate discussions on what are the Agile Manifesto values, what are the principles. You can find it somewhere, but during this presentation and during my research of all the different Agile approaches in the game development, something that's come to the picture almost all the time is this Agile Manifesto, then some parts of the Kanban, some parts of the Scrum, and some parts of the Scaled Agile framework. There are many more, but these are the four main sources of truth if we are talking about Agile development, if we are talking about Agile development in game dev. So let's go to the hyper-casual games and asset swaps. So Wikipedia and the description of the hyper-casual games. For those who are usually all doing only the AAA games or PC games, well, there's a very interesting world of small games with small releases that are kind of by default are very agile by the design, because the main focus is on finding the very short but still satisfying core game loop and delivering it. So it's usually something that is very popular on the mobile market. Most of the times teams are very small, teams are very personal driven, and yeah, I wish all the fake game ads could be really advertising the game in the ad, because when you're looking at the advertisement you think, oh, that's a very interesting mechanics, I would really enjoy playing it, but unfortunately it's not the game. It's not the game, but still the idea of hyper casual games is to do a very small game core loop and satisfy a player with it. Talking about asset swapping and why I put them on the same slide is basically, from the development perspective, it's a similar concept. You are not concentrating on the core game loop, you're concentrating on something that could be easily done from technical perspective. And from technical perspective, if you are not doing the new game design, you're just changing the textures, you're just changing some visuals. So the idea is on reskinning something that's already is existing, and usually it's also done in a very, very short time. So the concept is that either in hyper casual or in asset swap approach, you are trying to do a game really, really very fast. So from technical parts, it's basically simple, probably not the simplest in the world, but if we talk about various technologies, I'm just listed the pictures of the most common tools and software, but it can be anything, whatever is easier for people to work on. And from the Agile methods and frameworks, usually Kanban is really, really enough. People work on things that are always the top priority. They are trying to organize the value flows so that the game could be delivered really very fast. So the release cycles are really very short. Again, this is not only the technical idea, this is also a game design idea. This is also a business model thing, because you are trying to do the game as fast as you can. Usually, if we talk about structures of companies and teams that are working in hyper casual and in asset swaps, they usually don't need a dedicated full-time Scrum Master, a product owner, or a project manager. It should be kind of pretty obvious, because not so many things are there to manage. Yes, there are some processes that can help to the team and to the company, but if we're talking about doing the product, if you are working alone or in like 2 or 3 people, it's totally enough to be on your own. But still, if there is a bigger company, there are classical approaches, classical rituals like daily stand-up plannings, retrospectives. They're quite popular. They are quite popular both in hyper casual and asset swap, but it's just, there is no need in doing it so strict as, for example, in Scrum Guide. Or if we're talking about Scrum, if we're talking about Kanban, there is no need to do as strict as written on the big guides from Kanban University. The idea is that whatever is making you doing the game faster works, and no need to overcomplicate it. The next one, hackathons and using publisher. So there are lots of different hackathons. Some of them are public, like a global game jam, or hackathons and jams that are on itch.io. Some of them are inside of the companies. Some companies are doing it as an entertainment and a thing that they can just do at the free hours or during the working hours. But depending on type of hackathon, basically you can have focus switched from the gameplay to technology and on the other side, because for example, you want to investigate some technology. Yeah, so for example, one of the hackathons I was participating was purely Unreal Engine hackathon, with working on the technologies, was working with light. Some others were with the some gameplay mechanics. So the same could be in any company, the same could be in any hackathon. It's just the idea that you have some direction where you need to work on, and again, depending on how are you going to implement, you may need different techniques, you may need different tools, you may need different approach from Agile, but the idea is, again, during the hackathon, you have a very short time period where you need to create a game. So everything that is making you faster, everything that helps you with bringing and releasing value is actually really very helpful. Talking about using publishers and selling to publishers, so I'm not telling here the story about you need to create a game, then go to the publisher and sell it, and etc. I'm talking about the idea that some of the publishers, not only the one that is on the example, and not only publishers, but some other companies, they are actually paying for prototypes. So the ideas that you are creating on the hackathon or somewhere else could be actually a valuable idea, and it could be valuable not only because of monetizing with game ads like in hyper casual and asset swaps. For example, it could be a very interesting hypothesis that you just need to explore, and not only you may need to explore this. For example, some of the publishers, some of other game dev company needs it, and they can buy your prototype. They can use it as a thing that can be really very helpful for them. Usually here, much bigger amounts of user experience and marketing research are needed. It's something that is needed both from your side and from the publisher side. So some of the techniques that are coming from the product management side of the agile thing usually are important here. If you would like to get more details here, I have some of the upcoming slides. The slide that I've put it here just because I really like this presentation. You can watch it on YouTube. It's basically a thing of how you need to decide. Do you need to do the game by yourself, like indie game, or you need to find a publisher? And this presentation, this video is not only about the idea of prototypes that I've just shared, but also about the fact that maybe you want to do not only the prototype but the full game, and you need to explore how to actually release your game with the help of a publisher. So yeah, this is a separate topic. Enjoy this video, but we're moving on. So hackathons and publishers from the perspective of technologies. So I've updated the slide, so a couple of new names here. So mainly what I've added, version controlling is very important for the idea that you're doing the prototypes, and your prototypes are going to be viewed by other people. So you are not only using the classical approaches that you're just working on your own PC, but you need to understand how the versioning would be done. You need to work not only with simple and easy ideas, you need to work with, I don't know, anything that is specific to the publisher or something that is more widely known and spread among the other companies. Plus, on top of that, lots of publishers are already living in the whole another world. They are living in the world of big data. They are living in the world of A/B testing, user research. So, as I've mentioned, customer-centric methods are used. Analytics utilized sometimes even on very, very extreme level. From my experience, majority of very extreme level analytics were done with working with the publisher, because they are actually specializing on that. And this is a very great intermediate stage for medium-sized projects with 5+ people there. And usually this is a switch, this is a kind of barrier where you understand that, okay, I'm not only doing the hyper casual and small games, I'm capable of doing something on Hackathon, and actually I can develop a game more. So more and more practices from again agile software development is coming on the picture. You are trying to plan your releases. You are trying to understand what would be the optimal way to receive the feedback, what would be the optimal way to create the roadmap. So all of this stuff are coming more and more important, because actually this is something where you are not only working alone. Next slide. Next slide is a continuation. So Steam Greenlight was a great thing, the very great idea. Now it's Steam Direct, but the concept of Greenlight. So basically, this is a concept that helped indie game developers and the overall community and big companies to understand that maybe they need to do not only the incremental release of a game, maybe they need to do some incremental releases of updates of something that is valuable enough to show to public and receive the feedback, because basically all of the previous steps, all of the previous approaches were the approaches where you work on your game and then you are showing it to a publisher, or then you are releasing it. Here, this is a little bit another concept. You are trying to do some phases, almost like in the Gates-based development, and all these phases are actually shown to the public. So this is the example of how it's done in the flight simulator. There are examples for farming simulator, Gloomhaven, Cat Lady, Hades. So all of the companies that are working with public roadmap, all of the companies and all of the indie developers who are trying to release something, but not necessarily a game, but something that will help them with releasing the game, they are going through this approach. And from the perspective of tactics, methods, and things that you can use from the Agile world, is actually, again, everything that is based on the working with customer, receiving the feedback very fast, and ideas on how to triage this feedback, how to update and change something, because you have this luxury to change something on the reaction of the market. Because, for example, new TV show is released on Netflix and something got really very viral, and if you are working in such approach and in such model, you can actually do the update related to this topic. So if you would be, I don't know, a hyper casual game developer, probably you'd, I don't know, release a separate new game that is utilizing some concept. If you are working with the phases approach or with the Greenlights, it's something that you have an opportunity to put inside of your release plan, put inside of your regular updates plan, and actually receive feedback from the customers, potential players, and understand, probably this is something that will help me in the future, or no, probably this trend that is viral right now will not help me. Again, switching to the Gates, so even big companies are actually doing it, and this is a place where it's really hard to distinguish what is approach of the working with prototypes and what is approach with working on the AAA and games as a services, because basically this is a very common approach. Like, you have alpha, you have beta, you have early access, pre-release, and release. Is just the way how you are structuring your marketing strategy around it, how you are structuring your development strategy around this, and how they work together. So technical parts of this stuff, and basically the technical part of the AAA and game as a services, lots of other stuff. This is a small picture, you can enlarge it, you can find similar ones. There are lots of different tools, software, and techniques. They are more complicated than ever were before needed. And the very important thing I would like to stress here is that here the documentation, and not only the development but also marketing documentation, becomes more and more important, because you need to understand and you need to check what exactly were your promises, what exactly was in your roadmap that you told to your players that yes, we will deliver it, how you decided to do it, what was the reason why you decided to do it, do you need to update something in the future? Because, for example, in each company there could be changes in these platforms or rules, and you need to understand why are you doing this change, why, I don't know, year or 2 years ago you decided that you need to do this thing, and now something changed and you need to update it. So not only the process part should be mature enough, but technologies as well, because they need to support it. If you don't have very well organized version control, if you don't have documentation storage in place, it would be really, really hard to redo some of the decisions that were done years ago. Usually, if we talk about the classical agile stuff, on this side of picture, you have teams that have 10 plus people or multiple teams. So majority of times they're using Scrum or Scrum-based approach, and for teams that are bigger than, I don't know, 50 or 100, and as in the slide, these companies, these teams are usually trying to use SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, Nexus, or sometimes large-scale Scrum. But the idea is that at this point they need to understand how to work together. So kind of enterprise agile coaches and Scrum masters, they appear only here. So all of the previous types of game development teams and studios, actually they don't need a dedicated person. Here, most of the part, either they need it, either they need to find a workaround how to do it successfully. And yeah, last 2 slides about AAAs and game as a service. So again, most of the work that I've told about the Greenlights and Gates works here. As a lot of big companies are doing their inside Greenlights as a thing to do the prototypes and research the opportunities. The most successful from them, yes, they are becoming in real AAA games. The less, unfortunately, yeah, there are in any, I guess, in any game dev company who is on the market more than 5 years, they have a whole graveyard of the unreleased project, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine, because one of the core concept of Agile is being ready to fail fast. So you need to prototype something, get the feedback. If the feedback you are receiving is bad, so probably you can stop here and do something else. And a thing about game as a service, so the very important thing to distinguish classical AAA games and games as a service is actually that still majority of the AAA games, they're very waterfallish. Yeah, they're very movie, novel, or conceptual music album like, because they need to do through all the stages as in the Greenlights and stage thing. So this is dictated by the idea of end user or gamer should receive a very holistic experience from the content that author created. So it's like reading a book, it's like listening to the music album, and there is a need of this holistic thing. And most of the time it means that you cannot create the whole game, a very big, like 30 plus or 40 plus adventure game with small iterations. You will be still trapped in the idea that until some part, gamers will not receive the full experience. So most of the time, agility here is required for technical implementation, for the software part, like doing the releases, doing some tools, doing some smaller parts, because afterwards there would be still a lot of the quality controls, a lot of other gates that are actually making it harder to release a game really very fast. On the contrary, games as a services, they are like TV shows, anime series, comics, music singles. The idea is that the content that they are creating could be digested fast, and the idea of having hooks that are telling you, that was really nice, that was tasty, I liked it, and people need to wait for the continuation. So there is no holistic experience from one portion, and it actually makes the audience waiting for more excited, sometimes more stressful, and actually it also makes the developers think on, so we are not only developing them from technical perspective, software perspective, in Agile way, we also need to understand how to do it from the game design perspective, how to do it from the art perspective, because you need to understand what would be your optimal pipeline to work on something that would be, I don't know, in development for a couple of years, but still not only in development, but also on the release. So all of the great books and sources here I gathered to talk about the games, but if you are really interested in how to solve similar problems, you can read books on how the scripts for TV shows are made, how the anime and comics are working on the concept of when exactly what will happen and how it happens. So it will really open the very big Pandora box of how it could be done, how it could be achieved, and the idea is that all of this stuff, they really are agile in the idea. Again, here I'm kind of looping with the beginning of the presentation with the hyper casual and content swap. So this is the idea that you can create short feedback loops or not big enough feedback loops that will continuously help you with not only the delivering the game as a software, but also with planning the game as a piece of art, planning the game as a part of the experience, journey, game loop. And this is actually not only the development part, but also the art part and also the business part. So all of these three things are connected and they're equally important. And yeah, I guess for now this is it. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments, and yeah, have a nice day. Bye-bye.